Welcome to the TakingVegas.com podcast. It is the weekend of September 17th, September 18th. We're going to break down those games for you that we speak about on the radio shows and much, much more here on the podcast. Talk about the game last night between Kansas City and L.A. and get you some game breakdowns and some free picks for the weekend. So my name is Chris Hodge. It's good to be with everyone. Got a special guest. Joins me on my radio show each and every week. Gene Daly is with me. Gene, before we get to, the breakdowns with California, Notre Dame, Penn State, Auburn, Kansas, and Houston for Saturday, and we'll get over to some NFL action as well. We could talk about the game last night. Backdoor cover, for L.A. There are some things that go on with this guy Staley that I just don't understand. This is a guy that is hard to figure out as a coach because, they're down 10 last night, and obviously the point spread comes into play. They're down 10. They got 4th and goal at the 7. They need the field goal anyway, and this guy decides to go for it. It's very weird. When you get on a Chargers game, you really have to account for what this guy does.
I'm befuddled at some of his in-game decisions, and we made many a mention of this last year. What is it going to break down to now? Is it going to break down to we have to handicap the coaches in these games? Or, years ago we used to handicap referees. We would look at certain referees and say, oh, you know what?
100%.
This guy's going to call 1 million penalties during the course of a game. The game's going to have no flow to it. And they're hard games to watch. But with a guy like this, this guy makes decisions, in-game decisions, that make you want to scratch your head. And then, especially if you're an in-house, or I should say a home team fan of this team, you got to be scratching your head during the course of the year, every other week.
And if you're a bettor, look, it works both ways. If you were on the Chargers last night, okay, you're happy, but really that decision makes no sense because you need the field goal anyway. It's not like you're at the 1-yard line. You could say, all right, you're at the 7. You need the field goal anyway. It's very weird with this guy. But look, Kansas City does not cover the spread on Thursday night. The game stays under the total. Kansas City was a heavy bet. The under began to come down. It got as high as 54. Then it would have closed at
52.5, 52.
Yeah, that's what it closed at. Lands on 51 there. But Kansas City was a heavy bet on Thursday night.
Yeah, for sure.
People were loading up on them, and they get the pick 6. But, you're thinking if you're on Kansas City, you're in pretty good shape there when you get the ball back with 3 minutes to go, and you get the big play, and then you get the face mask, then you kick the field goal, and then
you want to know something?
All hell breaks loose.
I tell you, Chris, I think the NFL is going to regret what's transpired here, and week 2 hasn't basically evolved yet. But the fact that these teams, what are they going to be, 3 or 4 weeks behind schedule? What they did here
with the
preseason.
Yeah.
Some of these teams are sleepwalking right now.
Yeah, and it's another thing that has to be handicapped there with the NFL. Let's get to Saturday. We do our radio show, Sports Investors Daily, which is sponsored by this website, TakingVegas.com, and on that show, we mentioned the 3 free picks on a recorded line that they can get at 888-9-WIN-NOW. That's 888-994-6669. So one of the games for free there is California and Notre Dame. And, boy, that seat got hot quick for Freeman. That seat got hot quick.
And this ain't no gimme this week either.
No. And look, but they're also a double-digit favorite this week. But California's been game. They haven't been a bad team. But look, when you lose to Marshall, you give them the Ohio State game, you give them the Oklahoma State game in the bowl game last year. You can give them those games.
You're Notre Dame.
Yeah,
you're Notre Dame. You lost to Marshall.
Yeah,
without Randy Moss.
Right. Yeah, without Randy Moss. Yeah, he wasn't on the team.
How about this? Can you name one guy on Marshall?
Right.
Can you name one guy? But here's the thing. Did Brian Kelly get out at the right time?
Maybe he knew. Maybe he pulled like one of those Urban Meyer type deals at Florida where he knew like the talent just wasn't there. But here's the deal. Look, if Notre Dame finds a way to screw this game up, because, Cal played UC Davis. Okay, they beat them 34-14. Then they played UNLV. They beat them 20-14, right? If you're an 11.5, 12-point favorite for Notre Dame, I'm not talking about covering the point spread. We got that pick for you for free at 888-994-6669. I'm just saying, it's a weird game because right now, Notre Dame is an 11-point favorite, and the total is 40.5. That's a tough spread right there because what do they expect them to win? 27-13? Like something like that. Can you trust Notre Dame right now?
No.
You're right.
No, and listen, if they lose this week, touchdown.
Oh.
Listen, touchdown Jesus.
Whew.
They ain't going to be happy.
They lose this week. But look, both teams, look, Notre Dame played a good game against Ohio State.
Yeah, they did. They were competitive.
They didn't play a bad game in that game. They played a good game. They played a terrible game last week. It's when it comes to betting, right? This is what confuses people. This is why it's one of our free games, because you have to figure out, you have to do your research. Okay, what Notre Dame team shows up? Does Notre Dame from Ohio State show up, which was a good team?
Right.
Or does Notre Dame from Marshall show up? That's a bad team.
Yeah, but Chris, let's be honest. You can't be Notre Dame and have that kid as your quarterback, knowing that you got the rest of this. I mean, you can't go into the season. I think that's what Kelly said. He said, I don't have a quarterback. And listen, we know that Notre Dame's going to put anywhere from probably 2 to 3, maybe even 4 offensive and defensive linemen into basically every first and second round of every NFL draft year in and year out. Correct?
They always do.
Well, because number one, it's a very cerebral position to play offensive, especially offensive line. And we got to be honest. You can't be no dummy and get into Notre Dame without grades. That's why a lot of guys don't go there.
Yeah, I mean, so this is an interesting game. Again, hot. There's a seat that's very hot there.
And getting hotter.
Notre Dame is a double-digit favorite, so before you make your own bet on that game, call us at 888-994-6669. Penn State, Auburn. Hey, look, I've been for years, and I have no problem admitting this. I without even looking really further into research, there was a time where I saw the Big Ten play the SEC, and I just said I'm betting the SEC.
Speed.
I have no problem admitting that.
Speed against non-speed.
It's starting to change. It's not changing for the Alabama and Georgias of the world, but it's starting to change with these the mid-tier SEC games. But look, Penn State's playing Auburn this week. Both teams are 2-0. Penn State comes in at -3. Total sitting around 47.5, 48.
You trust James Franklin laying points against anybody?
I've never trusted James Franklin in my life.
He can't wait to sit on He can't wait to come out when the second half is kicked off and start looking at the clock.
Auburn won week 1, 42-16. Last week they beat San Jose State 24-16.
And that game was very competitive.
It was competitive.
Yes.
That was a competitive game. And then, if you look at Penn State and what they've done, the 35-31 win against Purdue, which went back and forth, and last week they absolutely blow the doors off Ohio 46-10. If you're looking at this game from a standpoint of who the better team is, you can make a good case that Penn State is the better team, but non-conference laying points on the road against the SEC, many people have lost money in that regard.
I agree.
Many people have lost money. And again, when we do the radio show, we try to we look at, okay, what are the tough games for people out there that are going to be on TV? Everyone watches Notre Dame. Penn State, Auburn is a national game. And the next game we're talking about is not a national game, but it is a game that's on television. We try to look at these tough games and try to help the people, because those are the games people for some reason like to bet, and they end up losing their money.
The high-profile games, it's never been a game that they're out there and people want to watch them, but does your pocket really prosper from those kind of games? I don't think so. You know me. I mean, I'm known as the hidden gem, man,
I know. So last year these teams played each other. Penn State won 28-20.
Right.
That game was in Penn State. Now they travel over to Auburn. Penn State last year was 4.5. Now they're 3 on the road. We'll see what Auburn has here. Auburn hasn't really looked good in the first 2 weeks. The first game, forget about. But last week, they didn't really look good against San Jose State.
No, they didn't.
They didn't look good. So, again, tough game to call there. And you can give us a call at 888-994-6669. That game's absolutely free. But you touched on it early before we get to Kansas and Houston. You touched on it you want nothing to do with high-profile games.
Why? I mean, listen, everybody wants to watch them. But in reality, they're really not the best betting propositions because of the fact that, who knows what these people really, really, especially a non-conference game. I mean, listen, we know that Penn State and we know that Auburn are 2 high-profile teams. But is it going to reflect what they do at the end of the season when the bowls are coming around? Is it going to reflect what they do when they have their conference games? Let's be honest. Auburn, the last couple of years, has been an afterthought, and now
they really played one good game.
They played Alabama's their season. It seems Alabama's their season,
and that was a good game for them last year. They happened to lose it, but I mean, it was a good game for them. But they still happened to lose it. And that was one of the better games of the college football season last year, by the way. But Penn State, Auburn, we have for free as well. Let's go over to Kansas and Houston. How would you like to be Houston right now, man? I mean, what a start to the season. Overtime against UTSA in a game they really shouldn't have won.
Shouldn't have won.
They win. Overtime against Texas Tech, the game they probably shouldn't have lost.
Right.
So 2 straight overtime games, 2 straight games are on the road, 2 straight in-state games. Now they got Kansas. Now, Kansas, a little bit of an upstart team. I can't even believe I'm saying that.
2-0. Kansas 2-0.
Yeah, but not just that they're 2-0. Like, that is they beat West Virginia. Now, I know West Virginia is not a really good football team, but, like, Kansas, like, you don't look at them like, okay, and they actually win the game by 13 in overtime.
Yeah.
So that was a weird one right there. But if you look at Kansas this season, okay, they scored points in overtime last week, but they scored 56 in week 1 and 55 in week 2. So now it's really like the Kansas offense is nice. They got some talent there, and Houston's defense has not been bad. So I think that's the matchup for this game.
Well, listen, the one thing about Houston is they got playmakers on offense. They got playmakers on special teams, but their coach is not known for winning games that he's supposed to win.
Didn't like him when he was at West Virginia.
No,
don't like him here.
No,
don't like him. UNH is, excuse me.
Don't put a lot of credence into his play calling at times. His play calling is very suspect, to say the least.
Always you know what? It's funny because he gets conservative
when he's not supposed to be.
Correct.
When he's supposed to bury teams,
yes,
all of a sudden he gets conservative.
And then when he's up, he can go for it. And,
right.
He's always been that way, man. Houston is a 9.5 point favorite. Total is 58. Kansas comes in 2-0 against the spread. Houston comes in 1-1 against the spread. You wouldn't think, looking at it just from the layman's perspective, with a lot of people out there listening to our radio show and the podcast, they would just take Houston right off the cuff.
Yeah.
But this is a game we've done a lot of research on.
And Kansas wins this game. They could be off and running.
Yeah. I mean, look, they play in a week.
A week.
Yeah, but it's a week strong. Does that make sense?
It's
there's some good teams.
It's the have and have nots.
Yeah, there's some good teams there in the Big 12. But look, Kansas, Houston, that's a 4:00 Eastern time game. And you can give us a call at 888-994-6669.
Let's make mention of Scott Frost, though. Let's talk about Scott Frost for a second.
Really?
The things that came out this week that the guy what head coach shows up late for practice?
I never liked him at UCF.
On a regular basis, he does.
I just, you know what? These guys, right, that coach these lower conference teams, right, to success. Right. And look, maybe, the guy from Florida, Napier, I think he's actually going to be a good coach. I like him. This guy, Frost, I was never sold on down there. Ever. I thought it was a bad hire. It was a more nostalgic hire because he played there.
Right.
And he won a national championship there. Right. But I never liked that guy.
Yeah, but also, when he was coaching in Florida, he got the throwaways from Miami, Florida State. And it seems now Florida State is starting to get the throwaways.
And look, you played in a weak conference where coaching, you had the better athletes.
Yeah.
In the Big Ten, all the athletes, for the most part, are very, very good athletes. So coaching is a big part of it. And what was he, 5-22 in one-score games? That's coaching.
That's terrible.
Terrible. Look, real quick, give you a free pick here on the podcast. A bunch of the radio shows I did this week. I was on this game, Miami and Texas A&M. Can't trust Texas A&M right now with what they did against App State. That was just terrible. They
don't know who their quarterback is.
No, that, and look, when you played App State and Sam Houston and you're averaging 22 points a game in those two games, that's ridiculous. Look what Kansas did. Kansas is at least averaging 55 points a game. Kansas.
I've never been a Jimbo Fisher guy.
Never.
Anyway. Never.
Ever. Fell into 1 year.
1 year.
1 year. You can't trust them. Look, I'm not saying they're not going to win the game, but you can't trust them to win the game by a touchdown. So for the free pick here on the podcast, it's Saturday. That's what you're listening to. You can go with Miami. I gave that game out all week long on radio. Let's head over to the NFL. Talk about Miami and Baltimore. I feel bad for this kid, Tua. I mean, he had some bad – it seems like everyone focuses on the bad throws this kid makes, right? Like, so he put one in the dirt on a dig, and it seemed like everyone was on that. But for the most part, I looked at – I believe you and I had this conversation early in the week. Like, what did he do wrong? Right? Like, he had a good completion percentage against a good defense, against a good coach. He missed some throws. besides 5 quarterbacks in the league.
And what did I tell you what Sean Payton said about him, too?
Yeah, they're just burying this kid.
He won't be there by the end of the season, he said.
Yeah, very weird to me. But look, you look at Baltimore. Baltimore was our free pick last week on TakingVegas.com. We have another free pick if you just go to the free picks page if you're on the website. But yeah, okay, Baltimore wins the game 24-9 against the Jets, and they were up 24-3 late. But it wasn't like that type of dominant game from Baltimore.
No.
Like, Baltimore struggled.
Jets were in the game
They were in the game.
For halftime, absolutely.
And they had the turnover. They had the fumble. Flacco threw the interception. But, like, I wasn't impressed with Baltimore last week.
No.
I thought Baltimore was going to win that game 42-10.
There's another team that lacks offensive weapons. You take Jackson out of the equation if he's not scrambling or finding, doing a little bit of a mandrake, if anybody knows.
Now, here's the thing about this game and this team this year, right? He didn't run the ball a lot last week.
No.
And he don't have a contract next year.
Yep.
Are they taking that aspect of his game away? Like, is he deciding, I'm just going to throw the ball and get this out of here?
Is he,
listen.
Is he a football version of Aaron Judge? I don't think so.
No, I don't think that. I mean, I don't.
Maybe
that might be the greatest all-time gamble ever.
But maybe he thinks he is.
Maybe. But look, he didn't throw the ball. He didn't run the ball hardly at all last week. I mean, and it looked like he was afraid to do it too. So I mean, that's another thing altogether.
We got to talk about the Knucklehead Bowl game coming up. It's a Knucklehead Bowl game. You know that.
Which one?
Lovie Smith and
we'll get to that game in just a moment.
Nathaniel Hackett.
We'll talk about that in just a second. But Baltimore minus 3.5 total, around 44.5, 45. Both teams come in at 1-0. It's Baltimore's home opener. Miami's first game on the road. I don't think, like I said, I don't think Miami and Tagovailoa did anything wrong last week. I really don't. They got the win. They got the cover. Baltimore looked less than impressive. But, listen, they took care of a team on the road. That's never an easy thing to do in the NFL. So, if you want this game for Sunday, give us a call at 888-994-6669. I'll jump over Washington and Detroit. Let's get to Houston and Denver, just because you mentioned it. Yeah, listen, I thought what Staley did on Thursday night was idiotic. Okay, it worked out. They scored the touchdown. Okay, I think he should have kicked the field goal because you needed it anyway, but it is what it is. You're coaching the Houston Texans, right? You're not expected to compete for a division title. You're not expected to be near the playoff picture.
Yep.
What the hell are you punting for at the 50-yard line in overtime? What the hell are you doing that for?
Well, here's the thing. Who's going to be booing in this game? Is it going to be the players on both sides booing each other's coach or booing their own coaches or the people in the stands booing? Listen, we talked about this. The fact that Brandon McManus said, get me the ball. I can kick from 64.
And he played for it. So the funny thing is on the Manning cast, right, Peyton and Eli, they did this thing on social media where, like, Peyton Manning called something like 60 timeouts. Like, he kept making a timeout, saying, call timeout, call timeout, call timeout. Called like 60 timeouts. They let the clock run down to 20 seconds. And now here's the funny thing about that. I don't know. You and I didn't have this to this degree. We didn't have this discussion. I thought when they let the clock down to run at 20 seconds, I thought they were still going to go for it.
Okay.
I thought they were going to take their shot. If they get the first down, they still had some timeouts. They get 10 yards. Now it's still a long field goal, but it's not 64 yards. When they ran that guy on the field, I was in shock. They literally played for a 64-yard field goal. Outdoors in Seattle. And they had Justin Tucker. Okay, Justin Tucker made it. That was indoors in Detroit. And he hit the crossbar for that. They played for a 64-yard field goal outdoors in Seattle.
So correct me if I'm wrong, though. If I remember correctly, there was about 1:05 or maybe 58 seconds, and the clock was stopped. They came up to the line. They called a timeout with 3 timeouts.
Yeah.
So, and that was on 4th down. So, in reality, now think about this. They could have punted the ball, been in better shape. Pinned them, used their 3 timeouts, would have had maybe 45 seconds.
Now, let's go with that, right? That's a stupid decision. That's a decision that has you scratching your head if you do that. And that's a better decision.
That's what I mean. Yeah, I mean, how could they not do that?
I mean, that is terrible. So, look, if I never thought Hackett, I hate saying this because I don't want to get on anyone's family. I don't like that. But I never thought Hackett's father was a good coach.
He's an offensive coordinator. Some guys aren't head coaches. Maybe he's just a coordinator.
And I don't trust these guys that deal with great quarterbacks. I don't trust McDaniels because Brady will bail him out. Because there's one thing you don't know, right? And a lot of people, I want you guys to listen to this. Everyone does give credit to these offensive coordinators because they had head coaching jobs. Nathaniel Hackett, McDaniels, and a whole list of. But how many times do they make a play call and the quarterback changes that play at the line of scrimmage? Right? How many times did Hackett send a play into Rodgers? This never gets publicized. And Rodgers just got up to the line and said, this play's not going to work.
Listen,
let me get out of this.
The greatest example of coordinators as opposed to head coaches is the Jimmy Johnson tree. Now, Jimmy Johnson, we know, is an all-time, whether you like him or not, his abrasiveness, his cockiness, his arrogance. He's a great coach. Great in college, great in the pros. His coaching tree, all the guys that worked under him became head coaches, they all sucked. Norv Turner, you suck.
Terrible.
Dave Wanstead, you suck. These guys were horrible.
You're going deep.
I mean, these guys, but that tells you how great some head coaches truly are. And they understand this. A lot of these guys have made their living because of their head coach, because they got bumped up to be in a position they should have never been in the first place.
So Denver is a 10-point favorite. Total is 45.
You trust that guy at 10?
I don't trust it. You trust Lovie Smith at 10?
No.
That's why. So this is a game we're giving out for free because we've done a lot of research on this game because you have to when you got two coaches like this. 888-994-6669 is the number to call for that. And you know what? Let's go over to Washington and Detroit. Detroit, does it ever change? No, it never changes. It's the same. It's like Groundhog Day. It's the same thing every year. Get down big in week 1, come back, lose by 3. Or lose in overtime.
Listen, I hate to make fun of a guy's IQ, but Campbell, he's some of the bonehead plays and calls he made last year. The last year was his maiden voyage as a coach, right? Wasn't it his first year?
And then he wasn't in Miami. Didn't he do like an interim spin?
Maybe he did
in Miami. But look, Detroit plays hard. They play hard, but they play stupid. Like they make stupid decisions.
I'm so tired of listening to that crap. They play hard. That means they suck.
Well, that means they're just doing their job, right?
Yeah.
They get paid a lot of money.
That means they suck. So what? You played hard, but
trying to be polite about it.
But we lose 80% of our games every year. You suck, guys.
Detroit, man. Washington. I don't know what to think about Washington. Really, they beat the Jaguars last week. No one cares. It's the same stuff every year, right? Jacksonville, the Jets, the Lions. It's the same stuff every single year. The same teams stink every single year.
The Jets. Oh, my God.
The Jets, what they do, man. Well, you know what? They got the Browns this week. That should be an interesting one. How about Dallas? How about Dallas? If you guys want a free pick, it's over here at the website. There's a write-up, Cincinnati and Dallas.
I think McCarthy's making Aaron Rodgers look more and more like a genius.
Again, another guy. How good of a coach was he?
No.
Right? How good of a coach was he? He had Aaron Rodgers.
He was the in spite of coach.
And Aaron Rodgers knew it.
Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers knew it.
He was the in spite of coach.
Absolutely.
They won in spite of him.
But they're starting Cooper Rush this week. Cooper Rush.
Yep.
That's a tough start right there. And look, Cincinnati, say what you want about them. They turned the ball. They basically they did everything they could possibly do to lose that game last week, and they did end up losing it. But from missed field goals, the pick sixes, the 5 turnovers, and Pittsburgh's a good football team because of Tomlin. They'll always be a good football team. They still had a shot to win that game despite doing literally everything wrong.
Yeah.
So that's a tough ask for Dallas. We got that free pick written up here at the website. Gene, we got a couple minutes left here in the podcast. You got a big play coming up tomorrow. You also got a big play. When I say tomorrow, this podcast is being recorded on Friday, so just so you guys understand. But you got a big play coming up on Saturday, but your move on Sunday, underdog plus the points, and we're using them outright as well. So it's a big play for you.
I mean, when I seen this line come out earlier in the week, and I said, this is wrong. This is completely wrong line. I mean, this is a kind of play where I want it all. And listen, I don't want to say, because there's a lot of guys out there that don't know enough about me and the way I go about my business, but I don't even want the points. But I'll make a protection bet and basically make it a 40-60 play where 40% will be on the points and 60% is going to be plus the money. Because sometimes you just got to take a shot, and when you take a shot and you know that the line's wrong, you take advantage of it. And I'm telling you something right now. I told everybody, I'm taking this money, I'm turning it over Monday. Listen, Monday's a very unique situation. It's the only time this year we're going to get 2 games on a Monday night. and they're two pretty good games too. So, and I happen to love one of those games too. So I'm going to make a big score this weekend.
All right, let me get to some free picks for you guys. For the Saturday show, when you're hearing that, we gave out the under in the UTSA Texas game. When you hear the Sunday show, we gave out the over 51.5 Arizona, Las Vegas. A couple free picks there for you guys. And right here on the podcast, I also gave you Miami plus the points over Texas A&M. So those are free picks on the podcast. Again, September 17th, September 18th weekend. We drop the podcast on Fridays, but it's for all weekend long. You can call us at 888-9-WIN-NOW. You got us here at TakingVegas.com. If you're listening on your phone, go visit TakingVegas.com and get updated odds, matchups, free pick trends, and a whole lot more free pick articles as well. So it's in the process of making that a one-stop shop for all your sports gambling needs. And if you want to talk about sports wagering as a business, we have our initial investment program. That program is designed to make 6 times your initial investment, only risking it twice. So we'll explain that to you if you give us a call at 888-9-WIN-NOW. Enjoy the weekend, everyone, and we'll catch you back here on Monday for the NFL recap. This has been the TakingVegas.com podcast. Have a great Friday, everyone.